All right, what's going on, guys? Back today. If you watched the last video, you know I've been working on a supplement for the game Pillage. I've been working on a little fantasy fan-made fantasy supplement right here. We checked it out in the last video. I kind of went through it. So I'm gonna do a quick battle report today. 250 points between Goblins and the Dwarves. Now, I know in the video I said I didn't really come up with rules for Goblins. I've been brainstorming some ideas for the Goblins, and I painted these awesome medbury miniatures Goblins, and I have 9 of them. So I thought I would do a little bit of play testing with these new Goblin rules that I've kind of come up with. It's nothing crazy, so we're gonna see how it goes. A small game. I'm going to go on a small board, going to do a 30 by 30 inch board. I think that works good for a small game like this. And then I have the Dwarves. Now, if you see, I went pretty elite with the Dwarves. We have a spellcaster in here, so we'll take a look at the spellcasting rules I came up with and the Dwarf special rules. So we're going to get into both army lists here, and then we'll get into the game. All right, so the Dwarves... the Dwarf special rules, right? They have -1 movement, and then they never suffer any penalties for their defense. So if they're getting ganged up on, or a Danax or a crossbow, nothing makes their defense rolls any worse. So that's their special rules. Other than that, they also don't suffer movement penalties for rocky, difficult terrain. So that's something you and your opponent have to distinguish, is what's rocky, difficult terrain. Anyway, so to get into the list, it's 250 points. It's 5 guys, so it's not a lot. Chieftain model. This is an Oathmark, one of the Oathmark metal kits. He's pretty cool. He's got like this really cool bear pelt, big axe. Anyway, full armor and hand weapon. There's nothing else to him other than the Dwarf special rules, and that's that. And then to his to the right of him, we have a mountain guard with a Danax and his full armor. So he'll have armor and a shield. So when he's not in hand-to-hand, so against range, he'll be considered full armor. And in melee, he'll have just some armor. So the mountain guard, if you don't know, if you didn't watch the last video, it's literally the Huskar rules with the Dwarf special abilities in there, and then he's just got 2 wounds instead of 1. And I did make him more expensive. He's 50 gold base, so this guy costs 75 gold right now, fully kitted out. So he'll give the extra movement bonus once per game. And he doesn't suffer penalties for swinging with his Danax, so he doesn't ever swing last with his Danax. But he's got 2 wounds. He's a little sturdier. And then I've got the next character. I've got a spellcaster. I went with a level 3 dwarven spellcaster. And the spells I've chosen for him. So 1, he's going to have stone wall. So casting value 4, place a stone wall that's 3 inches high, 6 inches long, and a ½ inch thick. Anywhere within 8 in line of sight of the caster. It counts as impassable terrain. So he'll have that. He'll also have Thunderbolt. So it's a casting value 6, targets any point on the map in line of sight. If hit, it does combat mastery. So casting value on a 5 up, target friendly within 12. That unit receives +1 attacks the next time it fights. So he can basically boost up these warriors to give them +1 attacks. So yeah, and then he's got his staff counts as an improvised weapon. And then lastly, I have 2 full armored spearmen. So they got spear, shields, full support. So that's the Dwarves, 250 points, a small list. All right, the Goblins. So I didn't do much with the Goblins. A couple things. Their spears are free. Their armor for them is pretty expensive. It's 20 gold to just get a suit of armor, right? Shields are still 5 gold. Hand weapons are still 10. Bows are 25. And then the other things I did, the Goblins, they can't carry Danaxes. They're too weak, so you're never going to get any kind of, unless they have crossbows, never going to get any kind of penalty for that. Which it wouldn't matter against Dwarves anyway. I mean, I guess they are good to hit with. They ignore the effects of nighttime, so they're pretty much, night vision, super sneaky. They're used to being in the dark. So they ignore the effects of nighttime. and then they always fail. They fail morale on a 1 and a 2 instead of just a 1. So they're a little more skittish. They run away a little easier, but they're cheaper, higher numbers. As you see, there's 9 models here to the dwarves 5, and then I gave them a couple special characters. So, well, one, the chieftain, right? He's a goblin. He's tiny. Like if you look at the scale between the dwarf, he's small. So the goblin chieftain, he'll have 2 attacks. He'll have 2 attacks, but only 2 wounds as well instead of 3 the normal chieftain. Now he is cheaper. Again, that's the whole goblin's whole thing. That's numbers. So he's cheaper. He's only 20 gold for the chieftain instead of 30. 1 less wound. Other than that, he's full armor with a hand weapon. So he paid the little extra price to get that. And then I've got 2 shield hand weapon goblins, just regular. 2 just bow goblins. I know this guy's chainmail, but just, it's not good enough chainmail to protect him. I didn't want to give 20 gold worth of armor to some bowmen. And then I've got 3 unarmored spearmen. So these guys were just literally 10 gold for all of them, or for 30 gold for all of them. And then lastly, the special character I came up for the goblins is the goblin assassin. So this one's he's gonna be armed with a bow and an improvised weapon. The goblin assassin special rule is he gets to start the game in ambush. So before the game, the opponent gets to pick a piece of terrain, write it down somewhere, and at some point during the game, the goblin assassin, he can declare that he shows up, and basically he shows up, and the first turn he's in play, his attacks get +1 to hit, and they ignore the enemy's defense. So it can be either ranged or melee attacks, but it's just the first round he's in play, the first round he pops up in. So if he's shooting with his bow, they're going to get +1 to hit, and they're going to ignore defense rolls, which is pretty good, but then he's just basically a regular archer after the first turn he's in. So he's going to get a kill. And if he's armed with a melee weapon, he would just strike first, the first round he's in. It's basically like simulating him sneaking up on somebody and, killing them. And the ignoring defense, it's like, they weren't ready for the shot, it just hit him, and they couldn't defend it because he's sneaking. It's basically like that. So you got to play him right to get the points out of him. I made him 30 points, so he's a little expensive, but he could get, guaranteed a couple wounds in there. But anyway, that's the goblins. We'll see how it goes. Again, we're play testing these rules. They might seem a little complicated, but it's really not that much. It's really just they fail morale on a 1 and 2, they ignore nighttime, and their chieftain has 2 wounds, and then the assassin's rules. So yeah, we'll see how this game goes. We'll get into the mission and the board. Also, they can't have Dane axes. I forgot that. That was the last thing. Anyway. All right, so today's scenario. The goblins are ambushing the dwarves. So the dwarves are taking a supply cart with some treasure in it through the woods. So the dwarves' goal is to defend it for 6 turns. The scenario is going to be 6 turns, so they got to defend that central treasure where the cart is. And survive. The goblins have to either, 1, be in possession of that treasure or just kill a dwarf. So goblin chieftain with a archer and a spearman, goblin warrior with hand weapon shield and a spearman, another hand weapon shield, spearman over here, and then an archer right here in the corner. And then we have the goblin assassin in ambush. So for him, because I'm just playing against myself here, he's going to randomly show up on a piece of terrain. It's either going to be this forest here, that one, this forest, that forest, or that little hill there with the wall. So this is a 6-turn scenario. The goblins have 6 turns to either kill all the dwarves or steal that treasure. Dwarves have to hold out for at least 6 turns. So we're going to get into the game here soon. So the goblins have to search that successfully in order to win. So the goblins are going to be the green dice, dwarf are going to be the blue dice for this game. And we'll see how this scenario goes. We'll get into turn 1 movement. So the goblins get initiative on the first turn because they're the attackers. So we're just moving up here. Goblin chieftain moving up. Goblin spearman. This archer's going to move half distance, so he'll be able to shoot once. This archer is going to take his full movement here up onto this hill, so he's not going to be able to shoot. And then these two goblin warriors are just going to move up too. And then those goblin warriors in the back there, they're going to move up, just getting in position. They were thinking about hiding behind there, but decided, you know what, we're welcome in the fight. Now, dwarf movement phase. The mountain guard is going to declare a charge into those goblins. So he's looking for, okay, there he goes, a 2+. So he'll get his charge bonus, which is good. So he's going to see if he's within. Yep, he's within his movement. He's only moving 5 inches, so he was only moving 6 inches there, so he was within. The chieftain is just going to try and make this long charge against that goblin with a spear because he can't see the goblin chieftain. So we'll see what happens here. All right, a 1. That's going to be a failed charge, so that's not going to bring him into contact. So he's just going to move half his speed forward. This dwarf spearman over here is going to go support the mountain guard. In his combat, spellcaster is just going to move over so he can get some line of sight on those goblins. The other dwarf spear is just going to stay. So shooting phase, this archer is going to take his 1 shot at the dwarf chieftain. So he's needing a 5. Nope, doesn't get it. And then he moved twice, so he's not shooting. Now we're going to cast some spells here. So he's going to try and cast, the dwarf spellcaster is going to try to cast Thunderbolt onto that goblin archer. He needs it's a casting value 6, and it's going to ignore armor. So if it does a wound, it's going to just kill that goblin, but he needs a 6. So we have a level 3 spellcast, so he's going to assign all 3 of his dice to try and cast this spell on a 6. So he could have opted to only do 2 dice or 1 dice and cast another spell, but he's going to do all of them. And abysmal rolls. So we'll see if he can make up for that later. All right, so combat phase. We're going to go with the dwarf mountain guard into the goblin warrior here. Dwarf mountain guard charge, so he's going to need a 3. The other warrior is going to need a 5 because he is being supported. The dwarf's being supported. So the goblin hits. Mountain guard would need a 5 to save. He fails it, so he takes a wound. The mountain guard takes a wound. All right, so boom, mountain guard wins that combat, even with this spear support. Or he loses that combat, sorry. So that's the end of the turn. This is the fire phase. I don't think anyone's going to set anything on fire right now, so we're going to get into turn 2 here. Initiative roll. Who's going to win the initiative? So dwarves get the initiative, and I think the dwarves are going to take the first turn. So charges to declare. The chieftain's going to declare a charge into the goblin chieftain. So he's looking to get into combat there. Looking for a roll. All right, got it. And he's definitely within range, so he's just going to move into contact with that goblin chieftain. That dwarf spearman is going to declare a charge because he figured, they'll probably charge him. Doesn't get the charge bonus. He's in range, so he'll still get to charge into combat, but not going to get the charge bonus. And then this dwarf spellcaster is going to move up, ignoring that rocky, difficult terrain because he is a dwarf. And now we're into the goblin movement phase. So let's see what happens. Oh, we're seeing if the assassin is showing up. So we're going to roll. All right, a roll of 6. So that's that one. He's showing up in that within 2 of that forest over there. So goblin assassin in play. That goblin spearman's going to go support his chieftain. The archers are probably going to stay still. Or this one's going to move up a little bit. He's going to stay still. And then the goblin assassin, he's going to move half his speed to get line of sight on the spear support over there because he thinks he'd have a pretty good shot of killing him. All right, shooting phase. So in the shooting phase is when all magic is cast, if you didn't know that already. He's going to try and cast Stonewall. So this is going to place a 6-inch wall that's line of sight blocking in between that assassin and the dwarf warrior. So it's a casting value of 4. And then he's going to cast Combat Mastery onto that spearman. He's going to attempt. So he's going to do two dice for the stone wall, needing a 4. He got the 4 on 1 dice, so boom. He's going to place that stone wall is going to pop up, protecting that dwarf spear support. And then he's going to use his last caster dice to try and cast Combat Mastery on a 5-up onto that dwarf spearman. He doesn't get it quite, but that's all right. All right, so now it's the shooting phase done for the dwarves. Now it's the goblin shooting phase. So all the goblins are going to try and shoot. So starting with, just checking last night, they all declared shots onto the dwarf. So the assassin's going to go first. Because he gets +1 to hit the first turn in, he hits. Now, it's going to ignore the dwarf spellcaster's armor, but not his wizard staff. The wizard staff is still going to get his save, so he needs a 4-up here to defend against this. He got the 4. So wow, the goblin assassin was only left with 1 shot left to take, and it was against the hardest guy to hit. So the dwarf spellcaster saved against that, and now the other 2 goblins are going to take shots. So the goblin over on the hill there, he's going to take. They're both outside of 10, so they're both going to get -1 to hit. So they're both hitting on 6s. So we'll go with the guy on the hill first. Oh, he gets 1 hit. He needed a 3 to save. He saves it. Because remember, the staff gives you an extra +2 against range attacks, the wizard staff. And then the other goblin missed. So combat phase here, dwarf chieftain versus dwarf versus goblin chieftain. So the dwarf is needing 4s because he charged, even though he has because of the spear support. And then the goblin chieftain is also needing 4s. So 4s and 4s here. And it looks like the dwarf chieftain got at least 1 hit. Did the goblin chieftain get a hit? Let's check it out. He did. So they both hit 1. So now they're both looking for 4-up saves. So let's see if they can do any kind of damage to each other. So the goblin chieftain saves and the dwarf chieftain saves. So no damage done to either. All right, now we're going on to the spear and the hand weapon. So the dwarf with the spear charged in. So we're looking at, I think, 5s and 4s here because of the spear support. So the goblin hits. Oh, and the dwarf hits as well. So we're going to roll defense saves. They're both looking for a 4-up defense. Or no, just the dwarf. Okay. Dwarf didn't hit. Sorry, he needed 6s because he rolled a 1. Yeah, that's right. All right, now we're going into this combat. Mountain Guard needs gonna need a 4 because of the spear support, and then the goblin will need a 5. So neither one hits. All right, fire phase or turn 3 though. No one was one to set fire to anything. So initiative. All right, it's gonna go to the goblins. I think they're gonna take it. All right. That goblin's just going to get in contact with the forest in case he wants to set it on fire. The goblin archers decide they got to go up and get some of this loot. So they're going to just use all their movement to go and start looting or setting this camp on fire and getting a little closer to that dwarf spellcaster. Oh, and that stone wall, it stays around until the dwarf mage casts another stone wall, and then it will move to wherever he casts it next. So the goblin assassin is going into that cart. He's going to search it. He needs a 4-up here to search it successfully. And no, he doesn't. So he doesn't get that treasure yet. All right. All right, dwarf movement phase. Okay, dwarves didn't move. No one had to move for the dwarves, so... shooting phase, so the dwarf got hit, and he saves. The goblin assassin shot him, and the dwarf spellcaster saved. So we're in the shooting phase now. So now we're looking at the dwarf shooting phase. So the only shooting phase, the only person taking actions here is the dwarf spellcaster. And he's going to attempt to cast Thunderbolt on that guy on a 6. No. He fails it again and rolling pretty bad, this dwarf spellcaster. All right, another combat phase over here. So we're looking at 6s for the dwarf and 4s for the goblin. Nope, no hits. All right, the dwarf chieftain versus the goblin chieftain again. Oh, no hits from the dwarf chieftain. And we have 2 hits from the goblin chieftain. So let's see if the dwarf chieftain can save. He needs 4 up. So he saves 1. So the dwarf chieftain is going to take a wound. So we go down to 2 left. Mountain guard versus goblin warrior. Oh, man. Double ones. Double ones. With the spear support, he would have needed a 4. Goblin would have needed a 5. So that's the end of the combat phase. Fire phase, we're going to try and set fire. That goblin's going to try and set fire to that tent. Just try to start burning things. Nope. He's going to set fire to the forest. He's going to attempt it. Nope. He needed a 6. The other goblin, he's going to do the forest. Try to set it as well. Okay, so he sets that forest on fire. Trying to start a little bit of a mayhem. So boom, there's the forest on fire. And we're going on to turn 4. So let's see who gets the initiative for turn 4. It's going to be the dwarves. Dwarves are going to take it. All right, so heading into movement phase for the dwarves. They're spread a little thin here. All right, so this spearman, I was thinking I'm going to move him up to maybe go start helping out. I later decide I think I would rather him not do that because I didn't really even think about, oh, he's got 2 archers staring him down. He's just going to die. So, you know, I gave myself, I mean, I'm playing against myself here. I gave myself a little grace. He's going to go back to the support. And then those 2 goblins, archers, just move 2 inches away from that fire because they don't want to die in the fire phase. Same with this goblin with the spear. He does not want to die. Those other 2 guys are locked in combat there, so they might. There's a chance they might die. So that goblin assassin, he's going to roll to search the cart. Oh, maybe he's not. All right, so the wizard's attempting to cast Thunderbolt on the goblin assassin, and he does it on a 6. So he lights him up, takes him out in 1 shot. No save for the goblin assassin. So finally the spellcaster's coming in handy. It last dice to cast Combat Mastery, and he does it. Oh no, he was casting Stonewall. Sorry, to move that Stonewall to block those other archers from shooting at him. So that was successful. All right, they don't have line of sight to the wizard anymore, but this guy on the edge, he has line of sight to that dwarf spearman. So, but that stone wall is in the way, so he's going to have to do an in the way test. And it passes him, and let's see if it hits. So he's looking for a 5. Ooh, no, nothing. He was within half distance. So combat phase, these 2 guys, dwarf looking for a 5, goblin looking for a 4. No hits, man. Nobody is budging this game. All right, chieftain again. We're looking for 5s and 4s. Dwarf looking for a 5. Goblin looking for a 4. So that's 1 hit apiece again. 1 hit apiece. So they're both looking for 4-up saves. They both saved. Jeez. This has been one of the least brutal games so far. Mountain Guard misses. He was looking for a 4. The Goblin's looking for a 5. Misses. They both miss. All right. Fire phase. So we're going to see if we can... or if one of those guys dies. So on a 5-up, they die because they're within 2 inches. Nope. Neither of them roll a 5, so they're good. So now we're going to see if the fire spreads to that tree on a 6. Nope. To the tent. Nope. Then spread to the tent. And then to this tree right here. This little group of trees on a 6. Nope. All right, so fire doesn't spread. It stays where it is. Didn't kill anybody, so that's good. All right, start at turn 5. Let's look at the initiative roll. Who's going to win the initiative? The Dwarves take it again. All right, so Dwarves are going to take the turn, the initiative. Movement phase, this Dwarf Spearman, he's like, something's got to happen. So he's going to charge the Goblin Spearman. So he gets it. He'll get the charge bonus because neither of them are locked in combat. So that's going to create a separate combat over there. So Dwarf Spearman versus Goblin Spearman. The Dwarf Wizard's going to move, so he's out of line of sight of that Spearman right there. That Spearman is now can't charge, so he's going to move over and try and loot the cart, the main objective. Needing a 4-up. Gets it. So he successfully loots the treasure, so now he's in possession of that main objective. So the Dwarf's got to do something to get it out of his hands. All right. This Goblin Spearman's going to do the same as the Dwarf charge, and he's going to team up on the Dwarf Chieftain. These archers are just going to move their full distance. They're going to move all the way around. Try to get positioned to maybe go get that treasure or do some things in the later turns. All right, so he's going to try and cast Combat Mastery to this Dwarf Spearman, needing a 5-up. He gets it. He gets it on 2 dice. So that Dwarf is going to get 2 attacks the next time he fights in melee. Combat Mastery gives you +1 attacks. His last dice, he's going to do Thunderbolt. Try and cast Thunderbolt on somebody, and he fails it. He was going to try and cast it on that archer over there, or on the goblin with the treasure. All right, so combat. So we're looking at two attacks. Oh, 2 6s, 3 6s. Wow. Okay, so that's all hits. The Dwarf needs a 4-up. The Goblin needs a 5-up to save. Dwarf saves, Goblin fails both of his, so the Goblin is slain by the Dwarf Spearman. That's incredible. All right, finally somebody's taken out in combat. So here the Dwarf Chieftain and Goblin Chieftain are fighting again, both looking for 4s. So that's 1 hit apiece. Let's look at the saves. They both need 4-up saves. Remember, the Dwarves don't suffer any negatives. So, the Dwarf saves, but the Goblin doesn't. All right, then the Spearman's going to get his free hit on the Chieftain, and he misses. He was looking for a 5. All right, now we have this combat over here. The Mountain Guard versus that guy, so we're looking for 3s and 4s. The Goblin's looking for a 4, Dwarf is looking for a 3. So Dwarf hits. Does the Goblin hit? The Goblin hits. It was off camera, but he rolled a 4 too. So both hits, so they're both looking for 5s. Oh, or the Goblin would have been looking for a 6. Dwarf looking for a 5. So they both take each other out in that turn. Wow, finally we got some brutality coming in. And then these guys, the Dwarf's looking for a 4, Goblin's looking for a 5 because the Dwarf charged. Cock dice, so we'll see what happens here. What was it? 4-up. So boom, they both hit. So the Dwarf is looking for a 4-up. The Goblin's looking for a 6-up. He's unarmored. So 6-up save for the Goblin, 4-up for the Dwarf. And the Dwarf fails. The Goblin succeeds. So in a turn of events, the Dwarf Spearman is taken out of action. That is huge for the Goblins. All right, so fire phase. Going to see if this Goblin dies on a 5-up. And he will be burned. That Goblin will be burned alive by that fire. Dead. No save rolls against fire. So now we're going to see if the fire spreads. So does it spread over that way? No. And it spreads to those trees. So that tree will catch on fire here. And then to the tent. Nope, doesn't spread to the tent. All right, so... nope, no spreading. Or he doesn't die. All right, so there we are after the fire phase. So this fire is quickly spreading. All right. Morale for the wizard because over 50% of the dwarves are dead, but he passes. Chieftain's immune. Initiative for turn 6, the last turn, and the Goblins will take it. That is actually pretty big. All right. So this Goblin here with the treasure, he's only moving 7 now because he has that treasure. So he's going to try and get out of line of sight. It is going to bring him within 2 of that forest that's on fire, but he's willing to risk it. to not let that spellcaster get a clean shot on him. The other spearman's going to move up, and then those 2 archers are going to stay there to hopefully take shots. The dwarf wizard is coming down to hopefully cast a lucky spell on this goblin. But the goblins have initiative, so these 2 archers are going to fire at the dwarf mage that has really good defense against shooting. He's saving on 3s against shooting. So we're going to see they're both within 10, and they didn't move. So the first goblin, he hits. So we need a 3-up save from the dwarf wizard here. And that's it for the dwarf wizard. Fails his 3-up save. Doesn't get to cast his spell to hopefully save the game. But you never know. All right, so combat here with the dwarf chieftain and goblin chieftain. So look at that. 2 hits for the goblin, 1 hit for the dwarf. Looking at 4-up saves. So the chieftain takes 1 hit. The goblin chieftain takes his last wound. Remember, the goblin chieftain only has 2 wounds. So he's going to be slain. The dwarf chieftain's going to go down to 1 left. And then the goblin spearman's going to swing. No hit. So that's big time for the dwarves there. Finally, it's the fire phase. So we're going to see if this guy gets burned alive by the fire here. On a 5-up, he's done. If he doesn't, he has a good chance of getting out of there alive and winning the game. And he is running through a forest fire with treasure and gets burned alive before he can escape. Wow, what a turn of events here. So now we're going to see if the fire spreads anywhere else. We're going to see if it spreads to the forest over here. On a 6, and it does. So now that fire is also, that forest is also on fire. Doesn't spread to the tent, doesn't spread anywhere else. All right. So now that, okay, so that is the end of turn 6. We're going to see if these 2 goblins fail the morale, or these 3 goblins. But right now, the goblins didn't secure the treasure, and they didn't kill all the dwarfs. So right now, technically, it's a dwarf victory. Even though, so we're going to see if these 2 goblins over here fail. So the spearman guy behind the wall is good. That archer's done. That 1 archer's done. Second archer, he's done. Remember, goblins fail on a 1 and a 2, so both those archers run. So right now, the game is technically in the dwarves' hands. We're going to play 1 more turn to see what happens. So technically, after 6 turns, the dwarves would have won because no one secured the treasure, and there's at least 1 dwarf left on the board. Or no goblins secured it. So we're going to play 1 more turn to see, or a couple more turns to see who would win. So the only chance is this goblin spearman goes and secures that treasure, or this goblin chieftain, or the dwarf chieftain dies. Or we'll see if the chieftain wins and he's able to secure it. So we're going to play 1 more turn. We're going to go into the combat, see if this dwarf chieftain who's going to win this fight between the spearman and the chieftain. So the chieftain hits. Let's see if the goblin can save. The goblin saves. Okay, so then sorry, I was going to move this other goblin up. So that was his movement phase. So now we're going to go into another turn here. They both hit. So let's see, the goblin needs a 6, the chieftain needs a 4. Let's see. Oh, so the goblin saves 1 of his. The chieftain fails his other one, so they both die. So, boom, right there, that's the game. But the turn is not over. We still have the fire phase to go through. So, we'll see if this goblin can at least go pick up that treasure. He should, so it's technically, if we play this round, it's a goblin victory. Fire phase, he burns. He rolls a 5 to burn alive. That is, that is wow. So, man, the game, it was a close one. It was actually it wasn't very brutal until the very last few turns there, where literally everyone died. The goblins foolishly took the treasure into a burning forest, and they were sending all their guys in to go get it, and they were just burning alive. But anyway, so that's the game. I hope you enjoyed it. I probably messed some things up. I probably didn't get a lot of things right. Again, I'm play testing, so any feedback, any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching. Again, it's a very the Dwarves were a very small elite list against the horde of Goblins here for a small game, 250 points. And the Goblins came out on top. So if we played that last round, if not, then technically the Dwarves came out on top. But it was good fun either way. I play to have fun, so this was a good time. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in this, let me know. I'm down to make some more battle reports to do more coverage of this, some bigger games, go into the other races and faction I made. But yeah, thanks for watching and have a good one.